What's going on, everybody? John here with you. It is Saturday, September 9th, 2023. How's everybody doing out there today? I guess it's time to do this once again this season, and this will be the NFL picks against the spread. And then when we get toward the end of this video, I will give you some information as far as what's been going up on the site and what to look forward to after that. So, as I always tell you, the last few years I have not done so well as far as making money. So try to not take my picks as much. Maybe you can take the exact opposite and get a bunch of wins. So kind of roll that way, and also not try to do as much studying for everything else you do, because these rosters change quite a bit. I do have some of these other ones in front of me to make sure I know whose quarterback is going where and who's doing what, because there's been a lot of movement in the offseason. So speaking of that, we will kick it off with Atlanta and Carolina. So this game's at Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta, and they're going to get 3.5. So in between Atlanta and Carolina, this is who you have at quarterback. You got Desmond Ridder for the Falcons, and you have Bryce Young for the Carolina Panthers, the numero uno pick. So for that reason, for Bryce Young taking his first NFL stab at it on the road, I know Atlanta is not exactly a world beater or anything like that. I will take Atlanta just to say that they're further along. If Cordero Patterson doesn't play, that kind of stinks. I'm looking at some of the stuff as far as the injury report. Everything else is at 3.5, and the consensus seems to be Atlanta at least by 4 or more on that side. And for the Falcons, whether or not you value Jeff Okudah, I didn't really value him for the Lions side. That's what you do know for the Falcons. He is out as far as officials, and DJ Chark is for the Panthers. But I will take the Falcons having to cover 3.5. I think that they can do so. So Baltimore and Houston. So here's the thing for me, whether or not it's Davis Mills, it's Lamar Jackson, it's his extension, this seems like a glorious opportunity at home for the Baltimore Ravens to continue to do what they usually do, which is be a really good regular season team, and then we will see afterwards. So he's got his money. He should be happy. I think the receivers core has changed a little bit in Baltimore as well, but it is Lamar Jackson. I know it's 10.5 and it's week 1, but if I have to take something that I know that Houston is usually one of those teams that can get beat down at times, and I think this is a good opportunity for John Harbaugh and squad to maybe get a big victory. So I will take Baltimore at home at MT Bank Stadium. That's what they call it now, 10.5. So Cincinnati and Cleveland. I know this is always a tough one in the Battle of Ohio. It's only 2.5 though. This game is in Cleveland. Cincinnati, they say Joe Burrow is good to go. It'll be Burrow versus Deshaun Watson on that end. So who would you take as far as those quarterbacks? You feel like you have the obvious answer there. I know Joe Burrow, you're trying to think about his health and what could be in this situation. Let me see if I can get any other injury designations or any consensus. Looks like everybody's healthy. It is week 1. You might see a lot of that on this side. Most of these Bengals picks that I'm seeing are very, very close, within 2 or 3 points. I see one writer has a 10 spot for the Bengals. So this is a pick'em game from what it seems like. I'm going to take the quarterback that I know, and Joe Burrow, only having to cover 2.5. But this seems like if you don't have to, this is maybe one of those games that you stay away from. So here's an interesting one for me. Indianapolis, they're at home at Lucas Oil Stadium, and they're getting 5.5 as the home team against Jacksonville. Now I would be thinking, because I'm not very smart, that this would be a game that would be more of a spread in favor toward Jacksonville, because it's Trevor Lawrence against Anthony Richardson, who's going to be making his debut. So that seems like an obvious one to me that I would take Jacksonville. That's what I'm going to do. I'm surprised that the spread is a little bit more, so that would give me a little bit of hesitation. But I'm still going to go with the Jags because I know what they have as far as their personnel. And it will be fun. I get a chance to watch Anthony Richardson, especially if you have NFL Sunday Ticket or anything else like that, because I don't know what's going to be televised. I imagine that's not going to be top of the list. but I will take Jacksonville only having to cover 5.5. So far, that makes all 4 favorites. When will I start to move? This is where I'm going to do so. Now, this might be one that make you scratch your head, but I'm going to go ahead and do so anyway. As far as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Minnesota Vikings. So Tampa Bay is on the road against Minnesota. And I know it's Kirk Cousins. And on the other end for Tampa, it looks like it's Baker Mayfield now. But Tampa is getting 6.5. My only concerns, it's not just Baker Mayfield, but for Minnesota on that end, what Kirk Cousins are we going to see? Sometimes he's hot, sometimes he's cold. I know they're at home and this seems like it should be a shoo-in for a victory, but at 6.5 points, is that Tampa defense good enough? And I feel like they always are. That's the strength of that team, especially when you have Levante David and Shaquille Barrett and guys like that. I'm going to go ahead and take Tampa to actually cover this 6.5 on the road. So give me the Bucks to cover the 6.5. I think Minnesota probably wins. The spread now live is 5.5 for the Vikings. So people put money on the Bucks. I'm getting 6.5, so I'm going to take that extra point. And a lot of the scores that I'm seeing have the Vikings maybe covering 7, maybe covering 6. So it should be pretty close along that line. Here's an interesting one now because quarterback has changed homes. You know, you're playing at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome or whatever the hell you want to call it. New Orleans is at home. It's 3.5 that they have to cover against Tennessee. But Derek Carr has entered the helm now for the Saints. Now, Derek Carr is one of those guys that can be like Kirk Cousins, but I do think he has a little bit more of a throwing ability. No disrespect to Kirk, because if I can be reincarnated and make as much money and do everything, he's had a great career as far as all of that. But for Derek Carr, I know he's got some ability. On the other end, you still have Ryan Tannehill. I know Derrick Henry usually starts slow, they say, on week 1. But I know what the personnel is for Tennessee, and they're getting 3.5 points. I know it's on the road, but considering it is week 1, and I know what I know with Tennessee, that could come back to punch me right in the face. But I'm going to go ahead and take Tennessee. And right now, this is called the Caesars Superdome. They've changed it from Mercedes-Benz to Caesars in New Orleans. The spread is still officially 3.5, and that is what I'm getting from my Monday line. And as far as some of these scores, they're 1-point spreads for a lot of them, and someone has Tennessee winning as well. So this might be a game that you want to stay away from, but I'm going to take Tennessee. Shocker maybe for me that I normally wouldn't go away from this team, but I'm going to do so now in week 1, especially because I see George Kittle as questionable as far as Travarius Ward. And again, for the Steelers, don't really see a lot of injury designations. But for Pittsburgh, they are at home, and they're getting 2.5 against the San Francisco 49ers. I already know what San Francisco is. My only question now in week 1, and we talked about it a little bit in the offseason, and you probably heard about it, is Brock Purdy's health status. What the hell is it? If he's a little bit shaky there in week 1, you already moved on from Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. So who exactly is the backup option if Brock Purdy maybe takes a couple of hits and everything else like that? How are they feeling? I know the offensive personnel is great, and you're going to have Bosa in the backfield. Hell, they're going to have both Bosas on that side, so it should be fun to watch them go against each other. But give me Mike Tomlin, give me Kenny Pickett, and the Pittsburgh Steelers at home getting 2.5. Now, this is something I wouldn't normally say, up except for last season. Washington showed me something, and I feel like they're a pretty decent football team. Whether or not it's Carson Wentz or Taylor Heineke, I don't really care at this side. I feel like Washington is a pretty good football team, all things considered. At 7.5, though. Washington's at home at FedEx Field, and it's going to be 7.5 against the Arizona Cardinals. I don't really have much to say about this one, so I'm going to go ahead and scroll down a little bit and kind of look at the line. It's still 7.5. I see some 27-12s, 20-10s, 23-13. They're feeling pretty good about the Commanders. I already feel pretty good about them from what I saw last year. So give me Washington at home. They do have to cover 7.5. Now this next game, I see a lot of people picking Green Bay, but we are at Soldier Field in Chicago, and I know it's Justin Fields, and it's Jordan Love on the other end. Jordan Love's had a lot of opportunity and behind Aaron Rodgers for all those years to get seasoning. I don't know how much of that's actually going to work, but we're going to see that maybe full time this year for the Green Bay Packers. Now, Green Bay, have they really started that rebuild? That's the question. Chicago's done that. I thought they made a couple good trades to be able to get their defense in line. And I feel like even though the division will probably be in the NFC North and between the Lions and the Vikings, that's why I'm wearing this Lions shirt, because I am a Michigan homie here on this side. This is where I live at this point, so I still go for all four teams, even though the Lions have been nothing but a depression den, haven't had any playoff wins since like the 40s. They've never been to the Super Bowl. But they did beat the Chiefs. But my point in this, in the sense of Chicago and Green Bay, these teams are still going to be rebuilding a little bit while the Lions and the Vikings still try to run the NFC North. I think the Lions might have it for a couple more years, but Chicago would be my next team in line. It'd be Detroit, Chicago, and then maybe Green Bay and Minnesota as they'll start to go the other way. So having that be the case, and even though Matt LaFleur absolutely owns the Chicago Bears, Aaron Rodgers isn't there anymore. So give me Justin Fields, and for this once right now, for week one with Chicago being at home, it's only 1.5. It's a pick'em game. Give me the Bears. So Denver and Las Vegas. Another one of these situations where quarterbacks have changed hands. We are at Empower Field now at Mile High. Man, these stadium names are getting worse and worse every year. Denver has to cover 4.5 against Jimmy Garoppolo and the Las Vegas Raiders. Now with Russell Wilson, again, you can see my hairline. It's receding big time. I'm pretty bald now, but I did just get a buzz cut here on this side. It's 4.5, and Russell Wilson, I don't know. It makes me crazy trying to pick him all the time. The one thing that we do believe on this side is Jerry Jeudy may not be able to go. It's questionable. It's not ruled out at this point, just before, because this is Saturday about 5:30 Eastern. If Jeudy doesn't play, I know the Broncos' defense is good, but how many weapons are they going to have? And Jimmy Garoppolo just seems to win games, whether it's management or not. You got Jacobs on the other end in the backfield. You have some good receiving core on that end. Still for Vegas, I'm going to go ahead and take the 4.5 points for the Raiders that I'm going to get. And I'll say that they go ahead and cover this one. A lot of this stuff that I see as far as the spread is 6 for Denver, 5 for Denver, 3, 1 having the Raiders win outright. So this one's going to be close. I might lose this by the skin of my teeth, but I will take the Vegas Raiders to backdoor cover. Now, the Chargers in Miami, this one is going to be in LA at SoFi Stadium. And the Chargers have to cover 3.5 against the Dolphins. This one could be an absolute shootout, and I see people are split on this one. The only reason I'm going with the Chargers right now is because I feel like they might be a tad more healthy, and Tua Tagovailoa, I'm not sure as far as the shots and all that. Is he still going to be good to go? They're going to let him loose in week one? We'll see. So if Teron Armstead helps to go as well, that will also help the Chargers. And then you have to have a Miami team that has to account for Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack now. So holy cow, that's a little bit different. I forgot that Khalil Mack was on the move as well. So I feel pretty good. I haven't changed my picks. I've already sent them in. So this is what I'm going with officially. I'm going to take the Chargers and the 3.5. So Philadelphia on the road against New England on this side. So they're in Gillette. I'm glad to see they haven't changed that stadium name. Philadelphia only has to cover 3.5, and still Jalen Hurts against Mac Jones, unless they want to go with Bailey Zappi, but I feel like Mac's going to have that job. New England's getting 3.5. I see no reason to, over sugarcoat things like this. Just give me the Eagles. They'll cover 3.5. Seattle and the Rams. So now we know the Rams are getting 5.5 on the road against Seattle. So they're at Lumen Field. This is at 4:25 Eastern on Fox. Seattle only has to cover 5.5, and Cooper Kupp is going to miss an extended portion of the season, it sounds like. I know you still got Aaron Donald in the backfield, but I like Seattle's defense. Hell, I like Seattle's offense. Give me the 5.5. I think Seattle covers on the road. Dallas and the New York Giants. Giants, they're in the Meadowlands, and they're taking on the division foe Dallas Cowboys. I know it's Daniel Jones. He can be hot and cold. I know you got Saquon Barkley. And Tyron Smith, I'm not sure that he is playing. He is questionable with the ankle. But I'm going to take Dallas. I think they cover the 3.5. I still think they're a good football team, and I still think they're going to find their way in the playoffs again. They're still a bit farther in front than the Giants are. Give me Dallas only having to cover 3.5 on the road. And that leads me to the Monday night game in between the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. Josh Allen versus Aaron Rodgers. I know there is a lot of fanfare as far as this, and Buffalo is very confusing to me. I know what their defense is, but the Jets also have a fantastic defense. I like Robert Saleh. I like some of the jobs that they can get done there in New York. I know there are some injuries there as far as Breece Hall. They might be losing him for a little bit, so hopefully he can play in this game. But it's still Aaron Rodgers in his debut. The Jets, all they needed to do last year was score more points, and now they have one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm not going to say best to ever do it, and not just because Lions from the NFC North, from former Green Bay to now New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers can still be that guy. It should be a hell of an upgrade. The Jets are at home, and they're getting 2.5. I'm going to take the Jets on this side. So those are my picks for the week. You let me know what you think about those, and you let me know what you think my record is going to be. As far as me closing on this video, I just want to go ahead and say at hopelesssportsguy.wordpress.com, we did get a couple reviews up as far as video games of Sonic Origins Plus and Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. These picks, I will be doing them every week against the spread, so you'll get some synopsis from me, and then the complete write-ups, just little recaps of each game, will be put in on the website as soon as all of this stuff gets posted together. As far as the coming weeks, I was in contact with Cooper Hopkins to see if he wants to cover some Seattle Mariners postseason. Again, he is not quite ready to believe that they're going to make the postseason on this side, but as far as next month, again, that will be the release of NHL 24. You know, we'll get back into the driver's seat as far as covering NHL games, and then as far as me working with the Waterford Sharks, whether or not it's always broadcasting or maybe just some of the stuff on the sideline off the glass, maybe I'll get some of the post on the recorder side to do some of these games. We'll see how that goes. So big NFL picks probably for a few more weeks before we get into the broadcasting side. And maybe next week, as far as these picks or anything else, I'll give you another video on NBA 2K24 once I get my feet wet and let you know how it is. Talk to you guys next week. Peace.